You know that feeling when you close an app on your phone, and instead of feeling like connected or informed, you just feel kind of vibrating?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very specific modern kind of fatigue.
Right. It's like you just drank 3 espressos, but you're also somehow entirely exhausted at the same time. Well, what if I told you that exhaustion isn't a psychological feeling, but an actual, literal physics problem?
Yeah, and honestly, looking at it purely as a mental health issue really misses the actual mechanism of what is happening to our brains and our energy when we engage with these digital systems.
I totally agree. And that brings us to our focus for this deep dive.
Huh?
We are looking at excerpts from a fascinating, really dense text called StarSoulSource, The Way of Nature and Inevitable Divine Truth.
It is a hefty title for sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I want to set the mission right out of the gate for you, the listener. We are going to explore what sounds like, abstract cosmology, but is actually a mind-bending, intensely practical survival guide.
Yes, exactly. A guide for navigating modern digital algorithms and really the structural nature of truth itself.
Okay, let's unpack this because I know the title sounds a bit out there. It sounds mystical.
The title definitely leans mystical, I'll give you that. But the text itself, it's actually an analytical breakdown of reality. I mean, it operates much more like a physics manual for how information, human connection, and truth actually move.
Right, it's not just woo-woo philosophy.
Not at all. The core argument is that if you understand the underlying architecture of the information you consume every day, you cease to be a passive victim of your digital feed.
Which is something I think we all desperately need right now. But to even begin understanding our Twitter feeds or like TikTok algorithms through this lens, we have to start where the text starts.
And that is a massive cosmological framework.
Yeah, the author breaks reality down into 3 inseparable dimensions: star, soul, and source.
And we should probably clarify immediately that these aren't, 3 different physical places out in space.
Right, it's not a map.
No, they are 3 dimensions of a single continuous movement of energy. So the text defines the star dimension as the cosmic, radiant aspect of reality.
Okay, so radiant meaning what exactly?
It means it is entirely transmissive. Think of it as energy moving outward, broadcasting, reaching across vast distances to touch something else.
So if I'm trying to visualize this for everyone listening, is the star essentially like a massive cosmic radio tower, just pushing signals out into the atmosphere?
That is a highly accurate way to picture it, actually. But, a broadcast tower needs something to receive the signal.
Right, otherwise it's just broadcasting into the void.
Exactly. And that brings us to the soul dimension. This is the individuated, incarnate dimension. It is purely receptive.
So the star broadcasts and the soul receives.
Yes. The soul is the living vessel where that infinite outward-moving cosmic energy actually lands. It's where abstract information gets texture, a specific physical location, and crucially, memory.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's where the cosmic broadcast becomes a personal, localized experience for you. So keeping with the radio analogy, the soul is the specific physical radio receiver sitting in your kitchen that takes those invisible waves and translates them into actual music you can hear.
Perfect analogy. And that leaves the 3rd dimension, which is the source.
The source. Okay, how does that fit in?
Well, source is the non-dimensional origin point. It is the ground beneath both the star and the soul.
So it's like the foundation of the whole system.
Yes, it's the origin from which everything is generated, and ultimately it's the baseline where all energy attempts to return once the circuit is complete.
Okay, I think I've got it. So the source is both the raw electricity powering the entire broadcast system and the original song itself before a single note was ever transmitted.
Precisely. That is exactly it. Now, where this framework gets remarkably complex is how it treats time and history within that system.
Oh, right. Because it really flips how we think about time.
It does.
Yeah.
Because the energy powering that metaphorical song in your kitchen didn't just pop into a vacuum the second you heard it. The text makes a really foundational assertion here. Energy carries its entire history as frequency.
Which completely upends how we usually consume information today, especially online.
Oh, completely.
Because we have this pervasive habit, I mean, we all do it, of treating the present moment as the absolute origin of all relevant data.
Yes, we look at a trending topic or sudden cultural shift and try to explain it using only what is happening right now, right in front of our faces.
Right, like it just magically appeared out of nowhere today.
But every configuration of energy, whether it's a specific digital interaction or a massive cultural movement, is the inheritance of what came before it.
And the text makes a really crucial distinction here about how that past is stored, right?
Yeah, it says the past isn't held like an archive of dusty files you can just go look up in a cabinet. It is held as a living resonance.
A living resonance. That's a cool phrase.
Well, it means the current frequency of any truth or any system has been shaped by every single compression, distortion, and release it has ever gone through.
Yeah, the text calls the present moment a threshold rather than an origin point.
And that is a massive paradigm shift. The present is simply the threshold where the accumulated past, what the text refers to as the harmonics and overtones of previous energy, and the already in motion future become visible to us.
Wait, okay. The already in motion future. The
Huh?
text claims the future is not empty.
Correct. It is already full of the logical and energetic consequences of what is currently true in the field.
But wait, I have to push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
If the future is already full and the momentum is already set, doesn't that strip us of free will? I mean, it sounds incredibly deterministic. Are we just passive receivers waiting for the future to happen to us?
It's a great question, and it's an important distinction to make. The text isn't arguing that exact rigid events are predetermined.
Okay, so it's not like fate.
No, it's more that the direction and the momentum of the energy are established by structural laws. Think of a tidal wave.
Okay, tidal wave.
If a massive tectonic shift happens in the middle of the ocean, the displacement of water, the wave, is already in motion.
Right, you can't stop the physics of that water moving.
Exactly. The future of that wave hitting the shore isn't an empty blank slate possibility. It is the logical consequence of the energy already traveling through the water.
So the wave hitting the shore is inevitable, but how we respond isn't.
That is the core of their argument right there. What remains open is the degree of consciousness that will be present when that wave arrives.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The wave of energy is a structural inevitability, but how the soul dimension receives it, integrates it, and ultimately transmits it forward, that is where the agency lies.
That sets up a totally fascinating physics problem.
It really does.
Because if energy holds the history of everything that shaped it, and these waves of truth are constantly moving through this StarSoulSource circuit, well, what happens when that truth hits a wall?
Right, when the circuit gets interrupted.
Yeah. What happens to the energy of a truth when it is actively blocked or ignored or suppressed by a society or a system?
And that leads directly to the text's definition of inevitable divine truth.
Yes, and let's clarify that term for everyone.
Yeah, we need to decouple the word divine from any religious or moral connotations here.
So it's not about being morally good or holy.
No. In this framework, divine simply means structural reality at the level of the originating source. It's the nature of what is fundamentally real to eventually make itself undeniably visible.
Okay, so it's just the baseline reality of the universe.
Exactly. Think about gravity. Gravity is a divine truth in this context.
Because you can't bargain with gravity.
Right. You can build a structure that temporarily defies it, sure, but the structural reality of gravity will eventually win.
The mechanics of how that truth makes itself visible are what I found so incredibly compelling in this section.
What stood out to you?
Well, the author states that when truth is suppressed, it is not destroyed, it is compressed.
Compressed, yes. And we know from basic physics that compressed energy accumulates force.
It builds up.
Exactly. The longer a fundamental truth remains unacknowledged or blocked from completing its circuit, the more kinetic force it gathers in that state of compression.
I was trying to visualize this while reading, and my first thought was a pressure cooker, but, that feels a little cliche.
A bit, yeah.
Given the digital focus of the text, it actually feels more like trying to force a massive high-resolution raw image file, which represents the deep, complex truth of the soul through a tiny text message character limit.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, because the pipeline itself is actively hostile to the sheer size of the truth.
What's fascinating here is that that is a much sharper metaphor than the pressure cooker. Because when you force a high-resolution file through a low-bandwidth channel, what actually happens?
It glitches out.
Right. You get massive data corruption, you get structural distortion,
Right.
and if you try to force enough data through a system not built for it, the system just crashes.
It totally breaks.
The text argues that a suppressed truth operates the exact same way.
It breaks the system holding it.
Yes. It enters at the source, travels outward through the star dimension as a pattern, lands in the soul as an embodied recognition, and then attempts to return to source.
But if it gets blocked on that return journey?
If it is blocked, it gathers force until its emergence becomes structural and irresistible.
And when it finally does break through, it doesn't just return to its starting point. The text points out that this circuit isn't just a closed loop,
No, it's a spiral.
a spiral.
Right.
The completion of the circuit inherently raises the frequency. The pressure builds, the truth emerges, it transforms the field, and the entire system levels up to a higher state of complexity.
Wow, so you cannot permanently suppress reality.
No, you can only compress it until it literally shatters the container holding it.
Okay, so if we take this entire cosmological framework, the broadcast of the star, the reception of the soul, the physics of compression, and we point it at the modern world, the text zeroes in on one specific environment. Yes, the place where this is playing out at terrifying speeds today.
Digital platforms, social media.
This is where the abstract physics become intensely, almost uncomfortably practical.
Yeah, this part hit close to home,
The text argues that social media platforms are not neutral infrastructure.
which is how they sell themselves to us, right? Just a neutral town square.
Exactly. We tend to think of them as empty pipes merely carrying the data we choose to put in them. But they are not. They are collective energy fields with highly specific, mathematically engineered frequency signatures.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's actually map the StarSoulSource architecture onto our phones, because this explains that exhaustion we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive.
Let's do it.
So the star dimension of a digital platform is its algorithm. It is the transmissive broadcast capacity.
Right. And what does that specific broadcast tower actually prioritize?
Definitely not deep, meaningful truth.
No. Algorithms are mathematically designed to optimize for engagement, which relies on neurological arousal.
Meaning outrage, performance, high contrast, novelty.
Yes, rapid consumption. Those are low complexity, high velocity frequencies.
Which means the algorithm, the star dimension, acts as a filter that actively rejects anything that doesn't match that chaotic frequency.
Precisely. If you try to transmit a different kind of signal, you are traveling against the fundamental physics of the platform itself.
Okay, so then you have the soul dimension, which is the individual user.
That's you. You log on as a complex, nuanced human being, presumably wanting to share an authentic experience or find real information.
But the algorithm doesn't want nuance.
No, it actively tries to flatten your soul dimension.
I want to dig into the mechanism of that flattening, actually. Like, why does the algorithm do that? Why does it hate nuance?
Because the algorithm is essentially blind to anything it cannot measure as a distinct interaction.
Like a click or a comment.
Right. Depth, contemplation, nuance, these things require stillness.
Yeah, if I read something profound, I stop scrolling.
Exactly. A user experiencing profound resonance often stops scrolling, stops clicking, and just absorbs the information.
But to the computer?
To the algorithm, stillness looks like disengagement. It reads stillness as a dead signal.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly dark, actually.
It is. Therefore, it systematically starves content that provokes deep thought, while force-feeding content that provokes a rapid, reactive click.
So it literally flattens the user's soul into a series of predictable, measurable impulses.
Yes, it reduces you to your reactions.
And beneath all that digital tug-of-war is the source dimension.
Yes.
The text identifies this as the ancient, universal human longing to be seen. The core desire to find resonance across a distance and know that what is alive in you is alive in someone else.
And that creates a profound mismatch.
A huge one.
The platforms have successfully hijacked our deepest, most human source longing for connection. But to satisfy that longing, they force us to perform through a star dimension built entirely for outrage and velocity.
It's an architectural trap. We are literally trying to push that massive raw file of human connection through a pipeline engineered for binary outrage.
And it explains why we log off feeling exhausted.
Yeah, our energy is literally being compressed and distorted by the environment.
And because of this architecture, social media acts as a real-time external mirror of the planetary thought and feeling field.
Which sounds like sci-fi, but it makes sense.
The text references older concepts here, comparing it to what mystics used to call the noosphere, or the morphic field.
Wait, before we move on to the implications of that, let's break those terms down for you listening, just so we are all on the same page. What exactly is a noosphere or a morphic field in this context?
Simply put, the noosphere is the theoretical sphere of human thought.
Okay, like an atmosphere.
Exactly. Just like the biosphere is the layer of biological life on Earth, the noosphere is the layer of collective cognition and consciousness.
Got it. And the morphic field.
A morphic field is a similar concept from biology. It's an invisible pattern or collective memory that shapes how systems develop. Think of how a flock of birds turns simultaneously without a leader giving a signal.
Right, they just all move at once.
They are moving within a shared field.
So the text is saying that the internet is the first time humanity has built a tangible, mechanical mirror of that invisible thought atmosphere.
Yes, a distorted mirror, obviously, but a highly active one. So when we see these sudden, inexplicable viral trends, when a hyper-specific emotion or some obscure idea suddenly dominates the global internet overnight.
The algorithm didn't just invent that out of thin air.
No, it did.
So the algorithm is just the weather vane, it's not the wind.
Precisely. The underlying human feel is what is actually moving the algorithm.
That is wild to think about,
And this ties directly back to our discussion about the compression of truth.
because things move so fast online.
Right. Digital environments drastically accelerate the compression to emergence cycle. What used to take decades of slow cultural percolation to surface into collective consciousness can now happen in a matter of weeks or even hours.
But the author makes a brilliant point here, and I think we really need to highlight this. Speed does not equal clarity.
It really doesn't.
Just because a suppressed truth breaks through the surface faster on Twitter doesn't mean we are actually processing it better as a society.
In fact, it's the exact opposite.
Right.
When a compressed truth surfaces faster than our collective capacity to integrate it, it produces massive cultural turbulence.
And blowing a fuse.
Yes, it's like hitting a bell with a sledgehammer instead of a mallet. The frequency is so loud and chaotic that it shatters the container.
And we see that every day.
We get societal chaos instead of healing because the infrastructure of our society simply isn't ready for the velocity of the emergence.
Man, that paints a fairly bleak picture of our digital landscape.
It can feel overwhelming, definitely.
Because if we are trapped in this giant digital pressure cooker that accelerates truth but structurally rejects the stillness required to understand it,
Yeah.
how do we survive?
That is the big question.
For the person listening to this right now, how does anyone, a creator, a business, or just a normal person trying to exist online, communicate authentically without being entirely consumed and flattened by the algorithm?
Well, the author frames this as the transmission problem.
Okay.
Since the platforms prioritize rapid neurological arousal and actual soul-level resonance is fundamentally slow, how do you bridge the gap?
Do we just log off forever?
The text insists that abandoning the digital world entirely isn't the necessary answer.
Oh, thank goodness.
There is actually an unprecedented opportunity here.
Right, because the searching soul has nowhere else to go. The broadcast reach of these platforms is just too massive to ignore.
Exactly. The question isn't whether to use the platforms, but how to interact with the star dimension without letting it compress your soul dimension into a cheap trope.
And the strategy the text proposes for this is a total inversion of modern marketing logic.
Completely backward from what we are taught.
It argues for coherence of field over the optimization of content.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this concept. It basically says you don't actually need to speak the algorithm's language.
No, you don't.
Because algorithms, no matter how sophisticated they get, are ultimately subject to the deeper StarSoulSource field. They are governed by a much older physics, which is the law of resonance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, if you think about the actual physics of resonance, it doesn't require shouting.
Right.
If you have a tuning fork calibrated to the key of A and you strike it in a room full of other tuning forks, you don't need to force the other forks to vibrate.
You don't have to walk over and hit them.
You don't need to optimize the sound. The other forks calibrated to the key of A will naturally begin to vibrate simply because the frequency exists in the room.
That is such a relieving thought. So your job online isn't to mimic the chaotic speed of viral trends just to be seen.
No, because if you try to speak the algorithm's language of outrage and novelty, you are changing your own tuning fork to a frequency you don't actually want to attract.
You're attracting the wrong audience.
Exactly. You have to provide integration capacity.
Meaning what?
In a digital world obsessed with speed, a creator or a participant must offer depth, stillness, and historical resonance.
So you use the platform's massive distribution network, the star broadcast capacity, but you completely reject its underlying logic.
You refuse to be flattened.
There's a quote from this section that completely rewired how I think about this. It says, "Depth is the reach that matters. It is the reach that lasts."
It's a powerful line.
It really is.
Yeah.
It implies that the metrics we use to measure success online, views, likes, rapid shares, are fundamentally flawed measurements of actual human impact.
Well, there are measurements of the star dimension, not the soul dimension.
Right.
The text insists that nature always finds a way through synthetic structures. The algorithm cannot govern the meeting of authentic minds. Resonance governs it.
Resonance always wins.
If you carry a genuine deep field frequency and you possess the discipline to transmit it without allowing the platform to distort it, it will invariably find the souls calibrated to receive it.
Because they are already looking for it.
They are already searching for that exact frequency.
So what does this all mean? When we pull all of these massive cosmological physics down into our daily lives, what is the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener?
It's a crucial question to end on.
To me, it is immensely freeing. It means you do not have to retreat to a cabin in the woods to protect your sanity.
Right, you don't have to unplug their router.
And you absolutely do not have to sell your soul to an algorithm to be seen or understood. You just have to ruthlessly know your own frequency.
Yes.
You anchor yourself in your own source connection and trust that the physics of depth will inevitably cut through all that superficial noise.
And it also reframes how we view the hostility of the internet.
How so?
Well, when you look out at the chaos, the polarization, and the sheer turbulence online, recognize that it is not a sign of fundamental failure.
It's not just the world ending.
No, it is the messy, accelerated, mathematically inevitable emergence of compressed truth. It's that high-resolution file we talked about breaking the pipeline.
Wow, okay.
Our role isn't to panic at the breakage, but to provide the steady, grounded capacity to integrate the truth as it spills out.
That completely changes the lens. It really does.
Yeah.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought today. Something that builds on everything we've just discussed, specifically looking at the immediate future of this technology.
Oh, this is the big one.
Yeah. We established that the algorithm acts as the star, the broadcast tower, and human longing acts as the source. But what happens when artificial intelligence fully saturates that star dimension?
That introduces a terrifying variable into the physics of the field.
Exactly. What happens when the broadcast tower starts generating its own infinite signals entirely divorced from any human source?
A broadcast with no soul behind it.
Right. If the digital space is flooded with hyper-optimized synthetic frequencies that mimic human longing but contain no actual soul, how will we recognize what is true?
It's a profound challenge.
So as you log onto your feeds today, don't just think about whether you are optimizing your truth for an algorithm. Think about how you are tuning your own receiver. Are you cultivating enough stillness to tell the difference between a synthetic broadcast designed to harvest your attention and a genuine frequency of truth ringing from another human soul? Because trusting the inevitability of truth means absolutely nothing if we lose the capacity to hear it.